I'm Tammy. Welcome to another edition of Health Evolution. Today, let's talk about what is the perfect diet. Vegan, vegetarian, paleo, completely carnivore, fruitarian. There's tons of diets out there. And honestly, I don't think it needs to be that complicated. I think that if you look for real whole food, and then listen to your body on what you should and shouldn't be eating, I think that you will, for the most part, get there. So, I'm not a fan of grains, specifically wheat, rye, barley, and oats, and that's the gluten-containing grains. Because as I understand it, gluten is like poison ivy in your digestive tract. So even if you're not allergic or celiac or whatever, it still creates an inflammatory response throughout your digestive system. And whenever you eat it every day or multiple times a day, you keep re-damaging your intestinal tract, and you end up causing problems digesting your nutrients. So people don't go around saying that they're allergic to poison ivy, but I don't know very many people that would be okay with rubbing poison ivy on themselves 2 or 3 times a day every day. They wouldn't want to do it because it would give you a rash. So gluten is the same way in your digestive system. It's not necessarily an allergic reaction. It's not necessarily an unexpected immune reaction like with celiac. That's an extreme reaction. But for most people, eating a salad of poison ivy would be uncomfortable. Well, eating gluten is also that uncomfortable for your digestive system. And that's an analogy that Dr. Joel Wallach makes. And it really resonated with me because I couldn't fully understand why no one should eat gluten regardless of immune reaction. Like if you got an IgG test, do you have an immune reaction? That's kind of it's a misnomer in the case of gluten because of that kind of physical reaction that it causes. So avoiding gluten will give your body a chance to heal your digestive tract, especially so many people have been eating it every day for years. You really need to give it time to rest. And then there's a lot of other things that I think are depending on your particular circumstances. Some people can handle dairy, some people cannot. If you do eat dairy, I highly recommend you getting the best quality dairy you can. I mean, you don't want to be drinking chemicals and toxins or eating cheese that's made from that. I would always go for whole fat products because the only real good part of the dairy is the fat. The low fat milks and low fat cheeses are unnatural, and mostly they're going to be higher in sugar because now volume wise they're going to have more sugar. So stick with whole fat, organic. I know some areas can find unpasteurized, non-homogenized. That would be the best, but you have to go with what you get. And if you can find A2 type, if it's cow milk, that would be best because A1 is what comes from the black and white cows, and those are more inflammatory to your digestive tract. So the milk that comes from Jersey cows or Guernsey cows, that's the parent breed of Jersey, those have A2. Goat milk has A2. I don't particularly like the taste of goat milk, but if you like it, then that's perfect. I try to stick with as much as possible. I mean, there's always going to be times where you can't, but if you stick with it as much as possible, you're going to do better for yourself. If you choose to be vegan, that's okay too. You've got to make sure you're getting enough nutrients. If you're vegan, you're going to need to eat beans. I'm only a fan of some beans, like lentils are pretty good as long as they're sprouted or at least soaked and cooked and then rinsed and then recooked. Beans have a lot of lectins in them, and so you can end up hurting your digestive system with that. So I would soak and sprout your beans if you're going to eat them. I would stay away from peanuts. Peanuts are very inflammatory. If you eat nut butters, I would stick with almond or cashew or something like that. There's a brand Nutso that I like that's got all kinds of various nuts in it, including and then including chia seeds. It's really good. I recommend it. There's no added sugars or anything like that. So that'll give you some of your protein. If you're vegan, you definitely are going to have to supplement. Everyone needs to supplement anyway because none of our food is as healthy as it used to be. But you're going to have to supplement for sure whenever you're vegan. You're going to need your B12 in higher doses. So just be sure to do that. If you're vegetarian, you can, like I said, with the dairy and eggs. You don't just want cage-free eggs. It doesn't Cage-free doesn't really mean anything. You have to get the pasture raised, and don't get vegetarian fed chickens. Like they put that on the label like it's a good thing. The chickens are not vegetarian, so that's like saying meat fed cows. It doesn't make any sense. They're grass fed cows. Chickens eat worms, and the eggs are brighter and more beautiful whenever they've been eating more bugs, and you get much more of your nutrients. The brighter that color is of the yolk, the more nutritious that egg is. If you have access to farm fresh eggs, that would be wonderful. If not, then if you have to get them in the grocery store, I would get pasture and organic because that way you know for sure if they were supplemented with their food, they weren't supplemented with antibiotics and GMO foods and that sort of thing. So that's important. If you eat meat, of course, you should get as good a quality as you can. Cheap meat ends up costing you in the end. I mean, everyone likes to think that because it's cheap in the supermarket, it's a good deal. It's not. It's making you sick, and you're going to end up paying for it later. Doctor, whatever it is, illnesses, that sort of thing. Do as best as you can. I don't think you have to be staunchly, strict on yourself and make it to where you cannot participate in life with everybody else. You can. You can go out to eat. You just need to have a rule of most of the time you're going to eat good quality protein. You're going to eat grass-fed, antibiotic-free, organic, as much as you can. And then reasonably go out with your friends or whatever if you want to, if you're going to eat the meat of any kind. So I like to go to the farmer's market and get as much as I can. I'm lucky enough to have someone here that I can order with online and they deliver every 2 weeks. That's really awesome. I have a friend that owns a Longhorn ranch, and that's nice because I know I can get good quality there. So I don't eat a lot of meat, but I try to, if I eat it, get the best quality I can. And like I said, no gluten grains and sugar. The healthy diet will have minimal amounts of sugar. And if you do have sugar, it needs to be minimally processed, which means honey, maple syrup is okay. If you want to have some sugar, everyone can have a treat. I mean, you have your birthday, you have events, holidays, those things. I don't think that everyone should say no to everything and feel left out of I don't think that's sustainable, for one, and I think that we're here to enjoy life. That's really our purpose here, right? Is to enjoy life. So find your happy balance. Use only a little bit of the other stuff. And let me tell you, once you get off sugar, fruit starts tasting like candy. Like you don't even realize how sweet oranges are or bananas or berries until you haven't had processed sugar in a while, and processed foods that are laden with processed sugar, even the not sweet stuff like tomato soup. So you start realizing how sweet everything is around you and how desensitized you've become to it. It's really nice. It's nice that you can drink your coffee with less sugar or none at all, maybe. So give it a try. And it's usually good for skin problems, joint problems, fatigue. Sugar feeds the bacteria in your gut that's just not going to treat you well, and it's going to make you feel bad. And so it's a good thing to get rid of sugar. Other than that, I think that you should just eat what feels right for you. Eat as much as you can that's recognizable as food. If somebody made it with a white coat on, it's probably not good food. It's probably not something you should be eating on a regular basis. I used to say barcode. If it's got a barcode, you probably don't. But I mean, a lot of things have barcodes. So, like beans in a bag or whatever. Uh, so, not so literally, it needs to look like what it is. If it's in a box and it's completely been pulverized and run through a machine and made into some kind of horseshoe shapes or whatever it is, that's not real food anymore. And whenever they process it, it breaks it down into such small molecules. The problem is it gets almost completely absorbed in the large intestines. And so by the time that it gets to anywhere where your good bacteria are, you have no more. And so your good bacteria are starving, literally, and you're feeding all the bad guys. So just remember that you need to think about how this is going to affect your gut, what you're eating. If you're eating something that a lab coat made, just know that your body doesn't understand how to process it. GMO foods are the same. And the way that I understood an analogy with GMO foods is imagine GMO means genetically modified organism, okay? And so what happens, and there's a difference between GMO and hybridization. Hybridization is where it used to be farmers would take two species of something, say apples, and maybe they would splice the trees together at the root, and sometimes you'd get two kinds of apples, or maybe they'd cross-pollinate, that sort of thing, and create a new flavor, right? But that's all Mother Nature, you're just speeding her up a little bit, right? Or they take the pollen from one species of something like bell pepper or something and puts it on another one. So that's all trying to cross-pollinate and hybridize and create a new variation. GMO is different. Genetically modifying something means that at the genetic level, something is used, like usually E. coli, to weaken the DNA strand, and then something else is input into that DNA strand. Usually something that's not even a plant. So, for example, there are tomatoes that are GMO that now have fish DNA in it. Imagine that little piece of information, this tomato data. You think of it like data with some fish intermingled in there. And each of your cells has something called mitochondria, which is basically like, imagine someone working in an assembly line, like in a factory. These little people are called mitochondria. And all they're doing is taking in whatever raw materials they're getting, processing them, and pushing them on to whatever needs that. Okay? And so they're all sitting at computers, and this information's coming in, and this tomato mixed with the fish is coming in, and your mitochondria says, I don't know what this is. Like, these are two different things. These aren't supposed to exist. I'm not trained for this. No one's shown me this. It's not in the book. So I'm going to put it off to the side. And so there's a big pile of code that's sitting there that no one knows what to do with. None of the mitochondria are trained for this. So it sits off to the side. And over time, that pile gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it turns into a tumor. And I'm not just hypothesizing. There has been studies where animals that were fed the same diet, only difference was one was GMO and one was not, and they're from the same litter, and the GMO animals get tumors of all kinds, kidney tumors, a lot of large organ tumors. So you don't want to put it in your body. I know that it's more expensive. I get it, but a tumor really sucks, and a tumor can turn into cancer. And is that cheaper than just having not bought GMO food in the first place? And unfortunately, our government hasn't caught on that we should be labeling this. Instead, they listen to the food companies that say, oh, Americans are not well-read enough to understand that GMOs are just fine. And what's really true is the opposite, is that we seek knowledge and the information says they're not safe, but the food company doesn't want to have to put that out there and possibly risk their profits. So they've convinced the government that we cannot possibly understand this, and so they do not require it. Every other country does. Every other civilized country, it says it on there if it's GMO or not GMO. Around here, usually if it's not GMO, it'll have something on there that says non-GMO, because those that are doing non-GMO know that people who want that will appreciate that it's labeled. Things that don't say non-GMO, chances are maybe it is. Maybe it isn't, but maybe it is. You don't know. I try to stick to anything that says non-GMO. I have seen things that don't have it on their package, but if you go on their website, it tells you that it's GMO or not. So I would suggest staying away from GMO foods, because it's going to hurt you in the long run. And also some fried foods are, I call rusted foods. So they're highly oxidized foods, and oxidation is just rust. That's what rust is oxidation. And so if you think of like fried foods, I'm not saying you should never have it. Again, this is all, we should put it in moderation. People are eating French fries every single day of the week, and sometimes multiple times a day. This is fried food, fried chicken, fried fish, fried whatever onion rings, that sort of thing. Well, all of that is rusted food. You're eating rust. If you're using all of your antioxidants to clean up your diet, nothing's cleaning up the rust that's building up inside your body, because everything rusts. Anything that touches oxygen rusts, and everything in our body touches oxygen. So you need to save your antioxidants for the good work of getting your body healthy. So avoid the rusted foods, the fried and the really well done, the crispy. I know, I love a crispy sausage off the grill too, but it's bad for you. It's oxidized food. I'm not saying never to do it. I mean, we all love it, but you just have to do things in moderation. And preserved foods. So I'm sure you've heard that nitrates and nitrites and all that are not good for you, and they're not. Unless you're trying to preserve your body like in a morgue, don't preserve yourself. You don't. It's not the right kind of preservation. You're not gonna. It's not the fountain of youth. It's bad for your body. Don't eat the preserved foods. There's plenty of stuff. Everything that came as a preserved food, like bacon and lunch meats, all of them have parts now, counterparts that are not preserved. So the perfect diet is whatever works for you within the confines of eating real food, honestly. And everybody has to supplement. You have your essential nutrients, your essential minerals, your essential amino acids, and your essential fatty acids. You have those. Everybody needs to supplement. And then the rest of your diet can be what you feel is right. Maybe you're morally opposed to eating animals, or maybe meat just doesn't agree with you, or whatever it is. Stay out of gluten. Stay out of preserved foods. Stay out of fried foods and GMO. Try to do as much as you can organic and fresh and whole. The store has a lot of fruits and vegetables already pre-cut and ready for you to use if you don't have the time. Farmers markets have a lot of things that you can get. Not everything at the farmers market is good. You need to read. I mean, just because it's at the farmers market does not make it good. I've seen junk food there too. So you just need to do what you can with your schedule. And everyone that I know that used to buy everything pre-done kind of for you, whenever they discover how easy things are to do, they wonder, why did I do that? It's like shredded cheese. You're paying a ton for cheese with a lot of fillers in there to keep it from sticking onto itself. I mean, like a bag is $2. Same a bar that's like a half a pound or something is the same price, and you're going to get 3 times as much cheese if you just do it yourself in your food processor or with a manual thing. It takes 2 seconds. Once you get into a rhythm of eating whole foods, real foods, you'll discover that you don't like the taste of other stuff as much. It changes your taste, and your body appreciates the real food. It's not as hard as you think. If you gave it a 30-day trial and really stuck with it, I think that you would realize how much different you felt and how much better you felt and how easy it is actually to. I think it's maybe a little bit daunting for people that have never been home cooks, but once you get used to it, you'll actually maybe even enjoy it. And everyone can find something that they like. Eating healthy is not as difficult as you might think it is. So give it a try, and then you'll find out what is your perfect diet. So don't forget, if you like my videos, to like and subscribe, and leave a comment below if you have any ideas for new videos. Thanks.